There's been a lot of hype and even a little bit of controversy about the Rode Wireless Pro, so let's talk about it. I'm going to really quickly go through what's included in the box and the main features of it that differentiate it from other things. Then we're going to talk about how to actually use it in different scenarios, and maybe a couple scenarios you hadn't thought about before. Now, the Rode Wireless Pro comes with two carrying cases, one for the units themselves and then one for the accessories that come with it. The charging case has a USB-C port on the back that does both power and data. So if you have all the devices in the case, you can not only charge them, but you can also transfer files from the onboard recording or update firmware and change settings on the app. But inside that case, now I actually do keep the cable that comes with it. That I don't think it's meant to go in here. There's not really a spot for it, but I did manage to get it to fit in. So I keep it in there because if you have this cable, then you don't need necessarily the accessories. You can just take this one case. In this case, you have the receiver and two transmitters, all which go directly into the USB-C port in the bottom of the case, so they plug straight in, and that's how the data and the power goes through them. And one of the nice things about it is they do automatically turn on when you take them out of the case, and you can fit the units in the case with the furry windshields on as well. Maybe not with the cable as well, but I prefer to have the cable in there because it also comes with labs, which are in this case. In the accessory case comes the TRS to TRS cable, as well as USB-C to USB-C and USB-C to Lightning cable, so you can plug it into phones. In the box as well, it doesn't come in the case, but in the box comes with this USB-C to USB-C 5 gigabit and 60 watt cable, so fast charging and also fast data transfer. Also in the case are these magnet clips. So this slots onto the clip of the transmitters all the way on, and then now it has a metal part, so then you can magnet straight on. So if you want to clip this to your shirt, put that underneath, magnet it on, and then it stays there. Now that doesn't look the best, but you can do it. And the case itself is nice and divided, so you can keep things separate. If we flip up the first divider, you'll find where I keep the lav mics. Now it comes with two Rode Lavalier 2 microphones. Pretty standard lav mic, omnidirectional, and it has the capsule sort of on the front. So it's not like a directional, you point it at your mouth sort of thing. You clip it on and have it facing out, and then it's just gonna pick up your voice. Microfiber cloth, the other lav, and I also have the colored rings on them that it does come with. Comes with this little bag which has the clips and all the colored rings in them as well, so I have one on each. And then in the bottom of the case you can see there's just a heap of windscreens. Now there are 5 in total for some reason. There are 3 for the transmitters and 2 for the labs. If you want to put like a fluffier windscreen on your lab, like if you're outside in the wind, you would use this, or if you weren't outside in the wind, you'd use this or even nothing. And then same deal with the transmitters. If you can use the onboard mic, you would put one of these on so the wind or even plosives don't mess up the audio. So while I go through the features, I'm going to be actually setting this up, and I'll plug it into that camera up there. So we have a locking TRS connector, so you actually screw it on so it can't accidentally come out, which is helpful if you are using lavs. Alright, so now we have the lav hooked up, and we're actually going to be using the onboard audio recorded on this transmitter. So, features. I talked about the locking connector and the one cable data transfer, and the auto on and off when you take it out of the case. But now let's address the biggest feature that everyone's talking about, 32-bit float. So the onboard recording is in 32-bit float. Basically, it's like high dynamic range for audio. So it means you basically cannot peak it, and you can't be too quiet. It just expands the range of volumes, basically, that it can record. And this is, as far as I know, one of the first, if not the first, system like this to do 32-bit float. The one thing now we're missing is 32-bit float in camera, because the recording on this is 32-bit float, but the signal that goes into the camera is still only 24-bit. So if you want that 32-bit float, you're gonna have to get the file off here and then sync it in post. Or if you just set your gain right, you'll be fine just using the recording that went through the camera. So it can also be made easier with gain assist, because these do have gain assist. There's 3 modes. You have off, which is obviously not gonna do anything. You just set it and that's it. You have auto, which will sort of level out the gain the most, and it'll keep it very consistent. And then you have your dynamic, which will allow more highs and lows but still keep stuff as much as possible within range and not peak things. So dynamic will sound a little bit more natural, but auto is going to be easier to use. You can also have different routing modes, which there's actually a variety of them because of the different ways that you can use timecode in this. I don't personally use timecode, so I'm not really going to talk about it, but there are ways to use it. But if you're just using one transmitter, you can have a safety track where you have your left channel as a set gain level, and then your right channel will be a little bit below that to prevent things from peaking. So if you do peak your left channel, then you can just switch to the right channel and then you will have that quieter audio. If you're using two transmitters, you can choose between merged or split audio. Split meaning you would have one transmitter on the left channel and one transmitter on the right channel, and then you can separate them later into fully different tracks in your video editing software. Or you can have it merged where both microphones go into both channels, and then it's just a stereo track where both mics are on both channels and it sounds normal, but it means you can't then separate things later. So it's quicker and easier to use, but you have less flexibility in post. Now I'm gonna really quickly go through some audio tests. Now, if you haven't noticed, the audio in this room is pretty terrible. The walls are just all plain. There's not a whole lot of stuff blocking the reverb, so you might have noticed a pretty big difference switching from the shotgun mic to the lav mic. The lav does sound much better, in my opinion. So in a bad environment, this is what the lav sounds like, and this is what the onboard microphone sounds like at the same distance. I'm talking normal level sort of thing. And now what I will do is do a bit of a 32-bit float demonstration. So I'm going to talk really loudly into the microphone and then really quietly, and I'm gonna change this all in post. The receiver's not plugged into anything right now, but if we're recording into a camera, that would have peaked the audio, and if this was 24-bit, it would have peaked the audio. But because we're 32-bit float, you can just put that into your editing software and then take that part that was too loud and just lower it a bit, and then you can take the bit that was too quiet and just raise it up, and you're not gonna introduce noise just because the range is so much wider. The noise floor is lower, and the maximum recordable volume, because that's a thing, is also way higher. So you just have more range to work with, so you can adjust up and down without introducing noise or peaking. So that's 32-bit float, and that's why it's such a big deal. And now I'm going to do a quick test with the lav. Now I'm talking directly at the capsule of the lav, and we have the little foam windscreen on, and if I take that off, we're going to see if the plosives are a bit more noticeable. So I'm going to test for plosives right here, and then we're going to test for plosives right here. Especially on that P sound, you would notice it more, and then we're going to swap it for the fluffy windscreen, and then we're going to test for plosives again. I don't have a cool little saying like Tom Buck does, where he talks about something about a podcast, but yeah. So let's see how much of a difference this makes. Again, you wouldn't talk directly into a lav like this normally, but it's more for like wind, like probably not too bad, but if I blow directly into this, I apologize for your ears right now, but okay, and here is a range test. Okay, so we're about 5 meters away now. I have the transmitter on my hip here on the back. Now this is a bit of a line of sight thing too, so if I block the signal from the transmitter to the receiver with my body, especially at distance, it might have some issues, so I'll turn around at the end and we'll see. But 5 meters now, and I'll go to about 80. Okay, so this is probably like 80 to 100 meters maybe, and again, the transmitter is on my hip, so if I have it facing away, I'm blocking it with my body, is it making a difference? And if I turn around, if it's more line of sight. So the range seemed to be way worse than I expected. I do think that devices like this don't work quite as well out in open wide spaces. They work better if the signal can sort of bounce around a little bit. If you're at that sort of distance, like past like 50 meters, if the receiver and transmitter cannot see each other, you're probably not going to get any audio. And now we're going to go into the different ways that you can use it that maybe you didn't think of. So the first way is just having two people hooked up with a lav. So you could have a situation like this where you have two people on camera, one person here and one person here, and both people just talk. I don't know if that's going to work or not, but we will see. Then we could have something like this where you have one transmitter on a shotgun mic and one transmitter on a lav, and then you could have two microphones on one person, kind of like how I have here with my XLR shotgun mic plugged into my camera, and then also I did plan on using this, but I just sort of decided not to because clipping it onto my shirt it doesn't look very good. With this sort of setup, now obviously you would actually have this boomed most likely out of shot, but you could switch between the lav audio or the shotgun audio, or basically just treat it like a backup. Like this shotgun audio is probably not going to sound great because of all the reverb in the room, so then I can use the lav, but if something happened with the lav mic, we still then have the shotgun audio, or vice versa. Could also do something like this, where you have your shotgun mic on the camera, like if you were vlogging, but then also wanted to have a lav mic on at the same time, so you can switch between the two different audios, or if you want to have a lav mic on yourself and the shotgun mic on the talent that you're pointing the camera at, you can do something like that. Or actually one extra thing that I don't think I'm really going to use, you can actually plug a headset into the receiver, so you can actually have 3 mics going at the same time. I don't really see myself doing that, but if for some reason you wanted to do that, you could. And then another way that you can use the Wireless Pro is as a field recorder. Because it has that onboard recording, this is recording right now, I can go and make my sound effects and do my Foley, or record a voiceover on just the device itself, because it has hours and hours of storage of that 32-bit float audio. If you want to go and do field recording for Foley or something like that, you want to get some ambient sounds, you want to get sound effects, or if you want to, like I said, record voiceover, or just record it separately, basically like I'm doing now. The entire time I've had this lav on, I'm just using the audio directly from the receiver that's plugged into my lav. And then I've just synced that up later to the audio from this camera. So now really quickly, let's go over what is kind of bad about this, or what it's missing. And like I mentioned before about the cable, the case doesn't really have a spot for it. You kind of have to force it in there a little bit. It would be nice if they built the case to include the cable, so then you only ever really need this, and then if you need the lavs or any of the other accessories, you can then take the other case. But having this as its own little system that can include the cable would have been better. And it wouldn't have been hard to just make a little extra room. The UI on the transmitter itself isn't the easiest to go, because there is only 3 buttons. It's not the easiest to sort of work through because there is a bunch of settings. Now, once you get used to it, it's not a big deal, but it would have been nice if maybe they just made the screen slightly bigger and made it a touchscreen, because there are other systems similar that do have a touchscreen on the receiver. Talking about the DJI mic, that has a touchscreen, so you can change all the settings with that, rather than 3 buttons where you have to either hold 2 buttons or press 1 or hold 1, and a touchscreen just would have made it easier to use. And the last thing, not really something that I really thought about, but I watched Curtis Judd's video on the Wireless Pro, and it kind of makes sense that Pro might not be the best name for it, because it still uses the 2.4 gigahertz band, which is just the common everyday, like Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, all that stuff. You don't need a license to use that band, whereas actual Pro stuff, they pay to use a different frequency, so then there's less chance of interference. Like this stuff can be impacted by interference from other signals if you're in a really busy area where everybody's got phones and there's heaps of Wi-Fi and Bluetooth signals all over the place. It could potentially have some issues. Whereas if it was really a Pro product, it would be using a different frequency, so it's not affected by everyday EMR. That being said, it is still a great product, and professionals still will use it, professional videographers and probably other professions as well. It'll be really good for content creators, YouTubers that have maybe been using something like the Wireless Go 2 or the Wireless Me or another product, and just adding the capability of 32-bit float on top of also having the gain assist. It means it's going to be a lot easier to use, but then also the 32-bit float means it's not necessarily easy to use, but it's more flexible in post as well, which is sort of what you want when you get to that more professional sort of level. I also like that it does come with all the accessories that it does. At the moment, it's about 600 Australian dollars, or I think around 400 US dollars. And it comes with 2 $100 lav mics included in the box. So it seems like the value proposition is definitely worth it. Like, yes, it is more expensive than the DJI mic and the Wireless Go 2, but it not only does more, but it also comes with more. So to me, I think it's worth it if 32-bit float is something that you would need. But anyway, that's the Wireless Pro. That'll be it for this video. Leave a comment about something here. And I'll see you in the next one. Do all the other things. I'll see you next time. Okay, bye.